What's up everybody? Well, after Formula One's first ever triple header, it feels like a bit of a lifetime having had a weekend off from Formula One since we had a Grand Prix. But not to worry, because Formula One is back this weekend. Not only is it back, it's back with a double header. Starting of course with the German Grand Prix in Hockenheim this weekend. And of course, Formula One did not visit Hockenheim last year, so it's been a couple of years since the teams have visited this particular track. And so that means that Friday, the practice sessions, FP1 and FP2, will be busy because teams will have to collect data on these new cars, these new tyres. All of these things have changed, of course, since the teams were last at the venue. What type of track is it? Well, it's a track that really has two very different halves to it. The first half of the lap is fast, it's flowing, has some reasonably fast straights and some fast corners. The last part of the lap though, the bit where they come into the stadium section, is the complete opposite of that. It's incredibly slow, tight, twisty, maximum downforce really required for that bit. That section is all about traction out of the very slow corners, it's about braking stability. And yet the first half of the lap is wide open throttle for large parts of it, particularly this year, because Charlie Whiting has confirmed, like we've had at recent Grand Prix, that there will be a third DRS zone this weekend in Hockenheim. So currently we got, or previously we had a DRS zone, I think it was between turns 2 and 3 and another one between turns 4 and 5. We will now also have a third DRS zone on the main straight. And that means actually that for the almost the first half of the lap, pretty much the whole part of that lap has the potential to be DRS assisted. And that will affect the team's decisions on the level of downforce that they bring to this race. What you really want is a real fine balance between that really high speed stuff, but yet maximising that potential of that slow, tight, twisty stadium section where you need huge amounts of downforce. So I would expect overall downforce levels to be around medium, I would guess, as a compromise between the two. It's a very traction-based circuit, particularly in that last sector, where the traction is key to the lap time. Is to get out of those slow corners without spinning up the tyres. Because if you get that wrong, not only do you suffer in terms of your lap time, but you start to churn through tyres and overheat tyres, the rear tyres particularly, at quite a rate. Braking is quite tough around this track. Some big, I think there are 4 or 5 big braking corners that put quite a big demand on the braking system of the car. So you do see that wear is quite high, braking wear is quite high around here too. Right, I am back at IMG in West London. This is where the studios are for Formula E Radio, where I was working at the weekend commentating on the Formula E race, and stupidly I left my GoPro camera tucked away in the corner of the studio, filming us all shouting into microphones. So I've got to come back to pick it up.
I was just saying, it's due at 11.
How you doing?
There you go.
What an idiot.
We've all done it.
Thank you very much. What are you working on today?
Chinese Super League.
Are you? Okay.
And just, yes, I know it's terrible, but somebody's paying to watch it in England, and you can work out exactly what the conversation was. It will get better.
Well,
that was a brilliant weekend, wasn't it?
It was great, wasn't it? Yeah, I loved it.
You couldn't write that, could you? Even with the rain.
Great way to finish.
Stop raining.
Yeah, perfect.
It just, because part of me wanted to watch them race in the rain.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been good, but honestly, the way it finished, you couldn't have had anything better. So it's great.
It was brilliant. So,
right.
Saudi Arabia next.
Thank you very much. Okay, see you, Pete. It's brilliant. Always got a story, old Pete the sound man, and always got a fantastic shirt on as well. So what about tyres then? Well, Pirelli have brought 3 compounds as ever to this particular event, and this time they've got the medium, the soft, and they've skipped a compound to go for the ultra soft. Very similar, if you remember, to what we had at the Chinese Grand Prix, which, if you think back to that race, I think actually worked quite well and opened up a number of different strategic options for the teams. Now, the circuit at Hockenheim is not particularly abrasive, it's reasonably smooth, so the actual wear rates and the normal degradation rates of the tyres are reasonably low, unless temperature it becomes an issue. Weather can be pretty unpredictable around that place. If temperatures are sky high, you will start to increase the likelihood of thermal degradation, particularly if drivers are unable to control wheel spin out of the slow part of the latter end of the lap. But in terms of normal wear and normal degradation rates, they should be reasonably low. But what happens is when you skip a compound, so there's no super soft, we've gone straight from the soft, skipping a compound to the ultra soft, it does mean when we come to qualifying, where we've seen at some other circuits where the top few teams are able to perhaps go through Q2 and therefore start the race on the middle of the three compounds, perhaps here, because there's such a step to the ultra soft and such a step in terms of performance, they will probably all have to qualify on that ultra soft tyre, meaning that the top 10 starters in the race will probably have to start the race on the ultra soft. If that's the case, for the midfield teams, if you're starting 11th or 12th, sometimes you can gain a bit of an advantage there because you can start your race on an alternate tyre, giving yourselves a different strategy, perhaps being able to run a little bit longer into the race on your first stint. Right, next stop is to pick up some stuff for Claire out of our storage unit that she needs, well, she's selling this weekend in her shop. Right, who do we think the German Grand Prix is going to suit most then? Well, I think probably it's going to be so close between Mercedes and Ferrari. That's what we've seen over the last few races. They've both been bringing aggressive upgrades to every single race. Ferrari brought some stuff to Silverstone which really looked like it made a tangible difference to their car and probably gave them the best car around the British Grand Prix track. In Hockenheim, I think it's going to favour the car that perhaps has the most downforce, or the most downforce available, and that's probably going to be the Ferrari in terms of its downforce versus drag efficiency. So it's going to be close. There's probably going to be nothing in it, and I'm sure that both of those two teams, as will many of the others, will bring more upgrades to this particular track. They're coming thick and fast. Nobody can afford to stop bringing upgrades. That old adage of you stand still and you get left behind in Formula 1 is never more true than this season. They've all got this very fine balancing act, whereas next season, because we've got this big aerodynamic regulation change, they all need to start putting resource into next year's car as soon as possible and increasing the level of resource as the season goes on onto next year's project. But nobody can afford to take their eye off this year. It's going to be incredibly tight, incredibly close, and I hope we're going to be in for a fantastic weekend. Then, of course, it comes Hungary the weekend after that, which is a completely different track altogether, and then we get into the summer break. So, loads more F1 to look forward to over the next couple of weekends before we get a bit of time off from it and have a bit of a reset. I hope you enjoy the race. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel, please, and I'll see you next time.